Hello, good morning, friends. How are you all? I hope all of you are fine, healthy, and safe at your home in this corona pandemic crisis. Now, let's talk about today's lecture. Today we have a lecture of cholinergic drugs part 2. In first part, we discuss about cholinergic transmission and cholinergic agonist drug. In today's lecture, we will learn about anticholinesterase drug and treatment of myasthenia gravis. Right. Now, anticholinesterase drug or cholinesterase inhibitors. As we all know, cholinesterase is an enzyme which is responsible for metabolism of acetylcholine. Now, this anticholinesterase drug, they inhibit this cholinesterase enzyme, so acetylcholine will not be degraded, and more amount of acetylcholine will act for longer duration, right? So they are indirectly acting, right? Anticholinesterase drug do not directly bind with cholinesterase and produce their action, but they indirectly inhibit the metabolism of acetylcholine, and acetylcholine will act on those cholinesterase and produce various effects. So anticholinesterase are of two types: reversible and irreversible. Reversible contains two groups: carbamates and agridine. Carbamates such as edrophonium, neostigmine, physostigmine, pyridostigmine, rivastigmine, donepezil, and galantamine. Acride such as tecrine. Irreversible group also contains organophosphates and carbamates. Organophosphates such as diflose, ecothiophat, parathione, malathione, tabun, serine, and soman, and carbamates such as carnile or propoxur. Acetylcholinesterase is an enzyme responsible for hydrolysis of acetylcholine to acetate and choline. It is present pre and post synaptically at now terminal. Anticholinesterase drugs or inhibitors of acetylcholinesterase, they prolong lifetime of acetylcholine at the cholinergic nerve endings. As a result, accumulation of acetylcholine occurs at the synaptic space, which leads to increased response at all cholinergic receptors in the body through both muscarinic as well as nicotinic receptors. Now, active sites of acetylcholine. The acetylcholinesterase enzyme have two binding sites: ionic binding site and acidic binding site. The anticholinesterase drugs react with the enzyme essentially in the same way as acetylcholine. The carbamates and the phosphates respectively carbamylate and phosphorylate the acidic site of the enzyme. The acylated enzyme reacts with water rapidly, and the acidic site is freed in a fraction of millisecond, while the carbamylated enzyme reacts slowly and the phosphorylated enzyme reacts extremely slowly or not at all with water. As a result, the half-life of reactivation of carbamylated enzyme is about 30 minutes, which is less than that of synthesis of fresh enzyme, while that of phosphorylated enzyme is more than the regeneration time of acetylcholinesterase enzyme. Anticholinesterase drugs are either lipid soluble or lipid insoluble. Lipid soluble agents such as physostigmine and organophosphate, they have more marked muscarinic and CNS effect. They stimulate ganglia, but action on skeletal muscle is less prominent. Lipid insoluble agents such as neostigmine and other quaternary ammonium compound produce more marked effect on skeletal muscle, also stimulate ganglia, but muscarinic effect are less prominent. They do not penetrate CNS and have no central effects. Now, actions of anticholinesterase drugs. They produce wide range of action. They stimulate both muscarinic and nicotinic receptor in autonomic nervous system and nicotinic receptor at neuromuscular junction. Now, action on ganglia. Local hydrolysis of acetylcholine is less important in ganglia. Inactivation occurs partly by diffusion and hydrolysis in plasma. Anticholinesterase drugs stimulate ganglia mainly through muscarinic receptor present there. High doses cause persistent depolarization of ganglionic nicotinic receptors and blockade of transmission. Now, action on cardiovascular system. Cardiovascular effects of anticholinesterase drugs are complex. Whereas muscarinic action would produce bradycardia and hypotension, ganglionic stimulation would tend to increase heart rate and blood pressure. Actions on medullary centers further complicate the picture. So does ganglionic blockade with high doses. Thus, the overall effects are often unpredictable and depend on the agent and its dose. Bradycardia and a small rise in blood pressure are common with moderate doses of many anticholinesterase drugs. When they applied topically in the eye, they produce miosis, spasm of accommodation, and lowering of intraocular. Now, action on skeletal muscle. After treatment with anticholinesterase, the acetylcholine released by a single nerve impulse is not immediately destroyed. So, it rebinds to the same receptor, diffuse to act on neighboring receptor, and causes retrograde activation of prejunctional fibers. The resulting repetitive firing produces twitching and fasciculation. Force of contraction in partially closed eyes and myasthenic muscle is increased, but muscle twitching is not prominent. Higher doses causes persistent depolarization of end plates, resulting in blockade of neuromuscular transmission, giving rise to weakness and paralysis. Direct action of neostigmine and its congener at muscle end plate results in augmentation of these features. They also increases intestinal and bladder motility. Now let's see individual drugs. First one is physostigmine. It is an alkaloid and a tertiary amine. It is a substrate for acetylcholinesterase. It reversibly inactivates acetylcholinesterase enzyme and causes potentiation of cholinergic activity. Duration of action is about 2 to 4 hours. It enters and stimulates the central nervous system. It rapidly absorbed from GIT and through parenteral routes. Mainly used for the treatment of glaucoma and for the treatment of overdoses of a drug with anticholinergic actions such as atropine, phenothiazine, and tricyclic antidepressant. Adverse drug reaction produce conversion at high doses, then bradycardia and increased cataract formation on chronic use. Then neostigmine. It is a synthetic anticholinesterase agent, quaternary ammonium compound, so has poor absorption, does not cross blood-brain barrier or cornea, so does not produce central effect. Actions are more pronounced on neuromuscular junction, GIT, and urinary bladder. On skeletal muscle, it has both direct and indirect action. It is mainly used for treatment of myasthenia gravis, post-operative paralytic ileus and urinary retention, post-operative decurarization, and for the treatment of cobra bite. Now, pyridostigmine, it is similar to neostigmine but less potent than neostigmine, longer acting, so required less frequent dosing. Dose is 60 to 120 milligram 4 to 6 hourly orally. Then hydrophonium, it has rapid onset but brief duration of action which lasts for 5 to 15 minutes, mainly used for the diagnosis of myasthenia gravis and to differentiate myasthenic crisis for cholinergic crisis and for post-operative decurarization. Dose is 1 to 10 milligram intravenously. Tecrine, it can cross blood-brain barrier and has long duration of action, used mainly for Alzheimer's disease. Another drug is rivastigmine, which is lipophilic and relatively cerebroselective cholinesterase inhibitor, used for Alzheimer's disease. Then donepezil, it is centrally acting anti-acetylcholinesterase drug, long acting, so suitable for once daily administration. It is used to produce cognitive and behavioral improvement in Alzheimer's disease. Now, galantamine, it is natural alkaloid inhibitor of cerebral anticholinesterase. It has additional weak agonistic action on nicotinic receptor and it is used to provide symptomatic relief in Alzheimer's disease. Now, irreversible anticholinesterase drugs, they are pentavalent phosphorus compounds with labile group. They react with serine hydroxyl group of the enzyme and phosphorylate the cholinesterase enzyme, which is inactive and stable. Now they act with esterase site of cholinesterase enzyme. So the recovery of enzyme is more than synthesis of new enzyme. So, ecothiophat, they interact with both site, ionic binding site and esteric binding site. So it undergoes slow hydrolysis and does not strictly irreversible. Difluos or parathion, they are volatile porous substances having high lipid solubility, so undergo rapid absorption through skin and mucous membrane. Now, irreversible compounds are mainly used as pesticide or as workers. Also used for enhancement of acetylcholine activity and parasympathetic postganglionic synapses. At large doses causes stimulation followed by blockade of autonomic ganglia. Neostigmine and pyridostigmine, they increase neuromuscular transmission. Now, organophosphorus poisoning. Organophosphorus are volatile non-porous substances of high lipid solubility. They rapidly absorb through mucous membrane and even through unbroken skin. They are easily available and extensively used as insecticides or pesticides. The poisoning is mainly accidental, suicidal or occupational. Local manifestation at the site of exposure occurs immediately, followed by complex systemic effect due to muscarinic, nicotinic and central actions. Muscarinic toxic manifestations such as diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal cramp, involuntary urination and defecation, meiosis, bronchoconstriction, lacrimation, salivation, sweating, bradycardia and hypotension. Nicotinic toxic manifestations such as twitching, fasciculation, muscle weakness and paralysis due to prolonged depolarization. CNS toxic manifestation is characterized by headache, restlessness, tremor, ataxia, confusion, convulsion and death due to respiratory failure. Now treatment of organophosphorus poisoning. First is termination of further exposure to the poison, which is done by removing the patient to fresh air, remove soiled clothes, wash soiled skin and eyes with soap and water, and gastric lavage in case of ingestion of organophosphorus compound. Second, maintain patent airway and positive pressure ventilation if required. Then supportive treatment in form of maintain blood pressure and hydration, control of convulsion with judicious use of diazepam, and monitoring of vital signs. Most important, specific antidote for treatment of organophosphorus poisoning, that is atropine, and we also use cholinesterase activators. Now, atropine is highly effective in counteracting the muscarinic symptoms, but higher doses are required to antagonize the central effect. It does not reverse peripheral muscarinic paralysis, which is mediated through nicotinic action, because atropine is non-selective muscarinic receptor blocker. It does not have any effect on nicotinic receptor. Now, all cases of anticholinesterase poisoning, either carbamate or organophosphate, must be promptly given atropine 2 mg intravenously, repeated every 10 to 15 minutes until muscarinic symptoms disappear. Continued treatment with maintenance doses may be required for 1 to 2 weeks. Then, oximes or reactivator of cholinesterase enzyme. Now, mechanism of action of oxime. Organophosphorus compound inactivate cholinesterase by phosphorylating the ester site of the enzyme. The phosphorylated cholinesterase enzyme react very slowly or not at all with water. However, if more reactive hydroxyl group in form of oximes are provided, reactivation occurs more than a million times faster. Oxime bind with high affinity to anionic site and dephosphorylate the enzyme at the ester site. As a result, reactivation of the cholinesterase enzyme occurs. It reverses the neuromuscular transmission but has no effect on CNS. Early administration of oxime is necessary before the phosphorylated enzyme undergoes aging, as it becomes resistant to reactivation. Oximes such as diacetyl monoxime, pyridoxine, and obidoxime. Diacetyl monoxime, it can cause blood-brain barrier, so produce action in CNS and autonomic ganglia. Dose is 1 to 2 gram intravenously slowly, repeat after 10 minutes. Pyridoxine 1 to 2 gram IV slowly, 1 to 2 hourly, maximum we can give 12 gram per day, and obidoxine 3 to 6 milligram per kg every 20 minutes. Now, treatment of myasthenia gravis. It is an autoimmune disease. In myasthenia gravis, antibodies are produced against NM receptors of neuromuscular junction, resulting in a decrease in the number of NM receptors, which result in failed neurotransmission. Increased incidence of myasthenia gravis is seen in patients with thymoma. How can we diagnose myasthenia gravis? Mainly by typical signs and symptoms such as weakness and easy fatigability. Then adrophonium test, in which adrophonium 2 to 10 mg given slow intravenously, which result in a dramatic improvement of symptoms in patients with myasthenia gravis but not in other muscular dystrophies. And third way is demonstration of antibodies to NM receptors. myasthenia gravis there is an intermittent period of remission. There are certain drugs which can aggravate myasthenia gravis, such as antibiotic like aminoglycoside, for example streptomycin and gentamicin, then polymyxin and colistin. Antiarrhythmic drugs such as procainamide, quinidine and propranolol. CNS depression such as morphine. Then miscellaneous drugs such as D-tibupyridine, quinine, methoxyflurane and lithium. All these drugs can aggravate myasthenic gravis. Now the treatment of myasthenia gravis. First and most commonly used anticholinesterase drug. They are effective in providing symptomatic relief. Neostigmine and pyridostigmine are commonly used. Long-term use or overdose of anticholinesterases result in cholinergic crisis, which is characterized by severe muscular weakness and neuromuscular paralysis due to prolonged depolarization. This may be differentiated from myasthenic crisis, which is characterized by severe weakness due to exacerbation of myasthenia by injecting a small dose of edrophonium. But ventilators should be kept ready before injecting edrophonium, as it may aggravate cholinergic crisis, which is dangerous. Second modality is corticosteroids such as prednisolone. Corticosteroids afford considerable improvement by their immunosuppression action. They inhibit production of NR antibodies and may increase synthesis of nicotinic receptors. Dose 10 mg once a day or on alternate day, to be increased slowly to maximum of 100 mg once a day or on alternate day. In the patient receiving high doses of prednisolone, it is advisable to prescribe additional potassium. When an acceptable improvement is obtained with steroid treatment, the doses can be reduced slowly, 5 to 10 mg every month. As the patient improves with glucocorticoids, the doses of anti-acetylcholinesterase drug can be reduced. Then immunosuppression such as azathioprine and cyclosporine. Azathioprine is used in a dose of 2.5 mg per kg per day. Complete blood count and liver function test should be performed every week for the first 2 months and then every month thereafter. Improvement with azathioprine is slow and often takes 6 to 12 months. Cyclosporine is given in dose of 2 to 5 mg per kg per day orally, and it is beneficial in advanced cases. Another treatment modality is thymectomy. It produces improvement in majority of cases. Even complete remission has been obtained. It is advisable when myasthenia is associated with thymoma or when the disease is not controlled with a combination of prednisolone and anti-acetylcholinesterase drug or with prednisolone and azathioprine. Anti-acetylcholinesterase drug should be withheld for 24 hours post-operatively and re-administered after doing edrophonium test. Then plasmapheresis. It produces dramatic but short-lived improvement. It is advisable in non-responder to thymectomy and treatment with steroid and anti-acetylcholinesterase agent. Improvement with plasmapheresis correlate with the reduction of titer of anti-NM receptor antibodies. Thank you all. That is all about today's lecture, right? So with this we have completed cholinergic drugs. Have a good day.